I've been really struggling with trying to decide to post this video or not. I asked you guys a while ago to vote on a video, and many said you wanted to see this one. And then I wrote up a script, I've been working on it here and there, and I've just been looking back really undecided as to whether or not it's something I want to put on this channel. In the past, I've definitely made lazy, kind of spur-of-the-moment content, and I don't want this to be more of that. It's a very opinionated video, which is not something I tend to do. And I do think a lot of people, especially people that will criticize me, will point to this video as a bad one. But let me tell you why I did want to post this, why I wanted to make a video just on my overall feelings and thoughts around Fallout 76 right now. First and foremost, we're at an interesting point with Fallout 76. There really hasn't been a ton of content in a while, which is, for most games, not a good thing. And I'll expand on my thoughts on that as why I don't think it's a super bad thing for this one. But we're about to get a fairly large content drop. 1 week from today, I'm going to PAX East and I will be playing Wastelanders early. And likely right around now, in 1 week, you'll be able to see my first impressions of that. And just a little over a month after that, all of us will get to play Wastelanders in its entirety. We're about to see a very major change or shift with this game. For a lot of people, it's make or break for Bethesda. If they deliver here, I think Fallout 76 will be on a big recovery mode, but if they don't, I could see a lot of people just being done with the game. So with that in mind, I would say at this point in time, it's good to have an opinion on what's going on. So as you watch that future content, you could get where I'm coming from. You could see where I may have bias, or just in general, what aspects of my thoughts around this game you just don't really agree with. A lot of the times when you hear my opinion on Fallout 76, you're getting a little snippet on one particular thing. It'll be at the end of a video or right after I talk about something, and you're not really ever getting that comprehensive view. And I think as a byproduct of this, from time to time, I'll see people say things about how I feel or think about this game that don't align with reality. And that's really the second driving force behind this video. I see a lot of misinformation, or what I would consider misinformation, going around, and hopefully this provides itself as somewhat of a clarity point. So many of you probably feel like that whole part of the video is just exhausting and unnecessary, but this is really one I'm quite nervous about. If you're just looking for a quick version of my opinion or my thoughts on this game, I would say overall Fallout 76 is mediocre. A decent game, not one of the best in the series, but also not one of the worst in the series, but then when you add on top some of the poor management we've seen overall, and some of the in-game problems like the bugginess, it does make Fallout 76 quite a bit worse, at least for me. A lot of those questionable decisions or just random issues that are still there that I feel like probably should have been removed at this point. But in general, I think it's one of those games that has a lot of room for improvement, both with in-game issues as well as the management of it overall and what kind of things happen outside and around the game. But now I'd like to take the rest of this video to actually expand on those thoughts and explain why exactly I feel that way. Because naturally, my opinion on this game isn't as simple as just a few sentences. So first off, when I view Fallout 76, and specifically the negative aspects of the game, because I feel like that's the part of note, I feel like one of the big problems is it's multifaceted. If Fallout 76 just had a few bugs or a few too many bugs this far after release, or if it just had some mismanagement from Bethesda, it would almost be okay. Not okay, but definitely a lot better than it is now, where you have a constant onslaught of whether it be Bethesda doing questionable things, which honestly as of late hasn't been too bad, but if you look at the lifespan of the game overall, there certainly have been some interesting decisions to say the least, but it seems like every time one of those gets fixed, there's still that level of bugginess that is just present. And then of course you have things like exploits popping up, especially as of late, or some of the hacks and the lack of a good anti-cheat. And one of my big concerns with this may actually be something that is addressed with Wastelanders. That is, mainly that these have lingered for so long. Some of these recurrent issues have been here for months, or even like 6 months or so at this point. One potential explanation is that they actually are fixed already with Wastelanders. I mean, if you actually think about it, we haven't gotten major DLC since like August, September. So around that time, I imagine a lot of efforts were focused on a separate branch and builds of the game with Wastelanders, so maybe that's why these bugs have lingered. And although that does provide a potential solution now that we've gone through it, it definitely has been pretty effective in tarnishing the reputation of the game. And then of course there also is the possibility that even though some things will be fixed, it won't be quite as comprehensive as I hope or as this game really needs. In particular with things like anti-cheat. Over the past few months, hacks and exploits have been a major problem. And although Bethesda, especially as of late, has actually been pretty quick to address some of these, but a lot of these aren't addressing the fundamental problem. It's not like it's putting a stop loss in place so future hacks or exploits won't work the same way. Some of these fundamental concepts are just being repeated over and over, and that's why so many exploits pop up. They're abusing that same mechanic or feature, and I do question, is that not fixed yet because it's already fixed in Wastelanders and they don't want to backport it? Or maybe because they were preoccupied working on Wastelanders? Or is it just not fixed yet because they don't know how? But to go back to my original point with this section, the thing that has me most concerned for the future is, even if Fallout 76 is a bug-free game, there's been a lot of other questionable things Bethesda has done with it. The release of Fallout First, just a few weeks after you delay the biggest DLC for the game and kind of a relaunch of the game in some ways, that timing is just horrible, and it really seems more so than anything else like a greedy decision. I'm personally not really one that subscribes to the belief that Bethesda was hurting for cash so much that they had to release Fallout first or the game wouldn't survive. And then even some of the other things that happened around that time, like trying to say users are requesting more utility items so they're adding more in, where that really wasn't a thing. Obviously I can't speak for the community overall, but at least in my experience, and I know in many others, we didn't see that. Those are just two of the more recent examples, but if you go through Fallout 76's lifespan, you could find a lot of weird stuff Bethesda did like that. Decisions that just kind of made you scratch your head, which is one of the things that really gets me wary for the future. It's not like that's all just going to stop with Wastelanders. Even if the core content is really good, is there still always going to be that thing that pops up that's a problem every few months like it has for the first year? I really hope not. I really do hope with Wastelanders they kind of take a new leaf and a new approach to the game and improve on all of that. And if anything, I feel like a counterpoint to that, something that does get me fairly hopeful for the future, is Bethesda as of late, specifically over the past month or so. There hasn't been much going on with the game. Fortunately, that means no major controversies outside of the inventory steal hack. And frankly, most of what we're seeing are exploits popping up from time to time, that basically being every week at this point, but also almost every week Bethesda coming back and actually patching out some of those exploits and also dropping some new details on Wastelanders, whether it be the new trailer, some of the images, information overall. With PAX East, they're doing something really cool with integration for the Chad podcast. This being a Fallout 76 based podcast, and it's not like this was massive. To me, that really is a sign of true community interaction, actually going to one of the more niche parts of Fallout's community and being like, hey, we like what you're doing, so let's work together on this. Stuff like that gets me hopeful for the future, that they actually are listening or learning from past mistakes. We haven't seen much as far as expansion or new additions to Fallout First, that being kind of a double-edged sword. For existing subscribers, you're not getting a ton of new incentives, or even some of those things that were said, hey, this will come at some point, really haven't been integrated. And think about it, it's actually been quite a long time now, several months have passed. But at the same time, they are not including additional ways to monetize their game that are kind of egregious or questionable while there isn't content. So definitely props to them from that. I do hope it is an actual recognition of, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that. Overall, Fallout 76 hasn't seen much in the way of content for a while, but fortunately it's not just free content, it's both free and paid content. It's not like the Atomic Shop is getting these massive and groundbreaking updates. Although, I think another topic for discussion is this delay, the sparsity of content, as it is actually pretty massive. Again, I would say around August to September, with the new release of the Nuclear Winter map, some of the vault raids that came out in the months prior, those were the last real major and meaty updates for this game. Now since then, we've seen other things, of course, like the holiday event, the Meat Week event, and even Project Clean Appalachia come to mind, as well as the occasional purveyor sale or mystery pick. But that's all pretty minor, so if you actually do the math, unless there's some surprise update coming in the next month or so, it'll roughly be 7 months that this game has gone without major content additions. From October until the release of Wastelanders in April, the only thing we'll have really had are seasonal events, which although cool, are literally just for a week. And honestly, I think that's okay. I could see some people getting upset or frustrated at that, and it definitely isn't good for Bethesda. It's not a great way to maintain players, but there's a couple of ways to look at that, some of which I think are very interesting. Bethesda's willingness to delay Wastelanders was significant. They had literally nothing else for the game during that time span. That is a 7-month gap now. And even though there still are players, that of course will likely have a fairly significant impact on the revenue this game is generating, which maybe that's why we got Fallout first. But even still, I think having a delay, allowing some of your players to walk away or take a step back from the game during that time, in order to actually implement a truly good, polished, and enjoyable DLC to hopefully improve the view of the game in many players' eyes is okay. Now, of course, in a perfect scenario, we would see major content additions all throughout, like maybe a few new vaults open up over that time, or some other more minor features got added, like the legendary player system. But if Wastelanders really does deliver, I think many will look back as that gap as a necessary cost to get us a good DLC, to actually launch Fallout 76 Year 2. But speaking of Fallout 76 Year 2, one of the other things that I think will be really interesting to see around Wastelanders is the controversy problem of Fallout 76. As in effect, the game has become a meme. It is a very popular thing to hate on. In my experience, for most casual gamers that don't follow things super closely, Fallout 76 literally just has negative connotations with it, and that is heavily reflected in both the press and media of this. There are several things that will pop up and become much larger stories solely because the Fallout 76 name is attached. I know I think this is a two-pronged issue. It's popular to watch the Fallout 76 train wreck, so on one hand, you get more readers or viewers, but then also, as such, you're getting a lot more articles and videos on certain topics. And a lot of the time, this is done poorly. That's not to say that you shouldn't cover some of the core problems. I mean, me of all people doesn't think that I cover a lot of the core problems, but things like lazy reporting, things like saying all of the Power Armor Edition helmets are moldy when it wasn't that, it was actually just like 20 of this very specific GameStop release, or how many articles came out about the inventory steal hack after the inventory steal hack had been patched, but failed to mention that it was patched. And although Fallout 76 has a lot of reasons to be disliked, and I think much of it is merited, some of it isn't. Some of the criticisms or dislike of the game, to me, definitely seems blown out of proportion at times, and I do wonder with Fallout 76's Wastelanders DLC how this will all shape up. Wastelanders in general seems to be mostly positively received. I think a lot of people, although they don't like Fallout 76, actually feel a lot more strongly about Wastelanders. They're cautiously optimistic, but it does get me curious what kind of effects this will have as far as a turnaround of the game goes. Has either A, enough time passed, B, will the DLC really deliver, and then not only deliver, but deliver enough that it convinces people to come back? If Wastelanders ships with major bugs or flaws, you know there's going to be a lots of coverage of those. And to some degree, there definitely should be. You have to hold companies accountable for releasing broken or buggy products and then taking a year plus to fix them. But at the same time, you could take the courtesy to actually update your article if they do fix that issue 24 hours later. And as far as my view on the future of the game with Wastelanders, I'm really unsure. I don't know what to expect. I have a strong feeling that Wastelanders might drop and be this amazing new piece of content that's 48 hours long. From casual play in a week or two, you could basically grind through all of it, and we just waited 7 months for a week or two of gameplay. I don't know that. It seems like there are a lot of new systems and mechanics getting added in with this, which should make the future of the game very interesting, but I don't know how much more faith I have for Bethesda to actually make this stuff land. But overall, I would say Fallout 76 is one of those games with a lot of potential. One, being a multiplayer Fallout, but two, even just from a story perspective, having a game set just 25 years after the bombs dropped is a very unique and interesting opportunity that Bethesda hasn't really explored thus far. There's a lot of stuff they could do with this that would be very fun and very cool. And then at the end of this one, just to cover a few common misconceptions or things I see posted online that I don't necessarily agree with. One of the first ones I see is actually how I don't play Fallout 76 and I just read Reddit to get all of my news. So in response to that, one, Reddit is actually a really bad source of Fallout 76 news oftentimes, or at least in my experience, I found it to be such. Mostly because a lot of times on Reddit post, what you'll find is a lot of bias. There have been numerous times so people will say this is how a certain feature works, or this is what's going on with something, and it's literally just 100% untrue. Or people shifting certain facts around based on their feelings of the game. So it's not a good source. I actually don't use it almost ever unless that's the only source of something. And I definitely don't browse it regularly when searching for news. And then separately, as far as not playing the game as much anymore, or not playing at all, I definitely still play, in particular around certain videos or certain topics. But yeah, obviously I don't play as much as I did 7 months ago when there was a constant flow of new content. As I just mentioned, there hasn't been much in a while. I think it's pretty natural for most people to stop grinding out daily quests after 7 months, and I see this specifically used as a way to say I don't know what I'm talking about, but I don't really think that's fair either. The vast majority of the time, you're not going to get a ton of information around the recent happenings of an exploit, glitch, or other news with Fallout 76 by being in-game, or at least we're currently in that meta. Most of the time, to find out the information, you go online, like to the Inside the Vault article, talk to people actually doing the exploits or hacks, or just looking in some of the communities as far as people getting banned or unbanned. When we're getting new content, when there are new updates getting shipped to the game, then yes, of course, you want to spend many hours in-game finding out the nitty-gritty of that. But that's not really how news is being created today as far as Fallout 76 goes, or at least most of the time. And again, I still definitely do play the game, I just don't play super often or nearly as often as I did in the past. Or then conversely, on the other side, I've seen people complain about me not getting mad enough about certain things, to which I just find that kind of shocking or weird. Why would it ever be a problem to not get mad enough about something? I mean, if you get so mad at this game, maybe you should just play a different game. Hopefully nobody's forcing you to play Fallout 76, and if it really is that frustrating, just take a step away. It's just a video game. And just in general, I'm not one of those people that get super outraged easily at things, so I find that criticism to be odd or just questionable. Overall, I don't really like talking in extremes, as I feel like most often it's not accurate. But either way, that's a more comprehensive look at my thoughts and opinions on Fallout 76. This is a video I've been really going back and forth about posting or not, and evidently if you're hearing this, I did eventually post it. But I thought it was a good time to do this, to actually do a bit of a more deep dive as to where I think the game stands now, because I think this will be very interesting to look back on later in 2020, after Wastelanders and maybe even other DLC, where we see where Fallout 76 is going next. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, but with that all being said, I hope to see you all next time. Later.
Intruder, identify yourself.